Chosen one, something has shifted. You can feel it in your spirit. The path you once followed no longer fits. The places that once brought you peace now feel empty. The words spoken from the pulpit no longer reach your soul. This is not a mistake. It is not confusion. It is God. He is calling you away from the old, pulling you into something greater. This is the sign you've been waiting for. You have outgrown the walls of tradition, and now God is leading you into a new revelation, a path that few will understand, but one that has been divinely set for you. The time for waiting is over. The time for questioning is done. God has spoken, and He is telling you this. Forget the churches. Your journey with Him is no longer bound to a building. Your faith is no longer contained within walls built by man. You are stepping into a new level, a higher calling, and this message is the confirmation you have been praying for. Listen carefully, because what you hear today will change everything. There comes a moment in every believer's life when God speaks so clearly, so powerfully, that there is no room for doubt. This is that moment for you. For so long, you have walked the path laid before you by tradition. You have sat in pews, listened to sermons, followed the rituals, and tried to find God inside the walls of the church. But something within you has been stirring, a feeling you couldn't quite explain, a restlessness in your soul. And now, God is revealing the truth. Your spiritual path has changed, because He has decided it. This is not abandonment. This is not rebellion. This is elevation. You are not leaving God. You are walking closer to Him than ever before. The churches have served their purpose, but now God is calling His chosen ones out of the old ways and into something greater. No longer will your faith be tied to a building. No longer will your connection to God depend on man-made traditions. He is tearing down the walls that have confined your spirit and releasing you into a new level of divine relationship. Think of the great men and women in the Bible. Abraham was called away from his homeland to walk in a promise he could not yet see. Moses had to leave Egypt before he could lead God's people to freedom. Jesus Himself taught outside of the synagogues, among the people, free from the restrictions of religious institutions. And now, God is calling you. Do not mistake this feeling for confusion. It is confirmation. The reason you no longer find fulfillment in the church is because God has already pulled you into a new season. You are being set apart. You are being positioned for something greater. But the question remains, will you answer the call? For years, you have been told that the church is the foundation of faith, the place where God's presence dwells, the only path to spiritual growth. But deep inside, you have always sensed that God is bigger than the walls that try to contain Him. You have felt it, that uneasy stirring in your spirit every time you walked into the building, every time you listened to words that once fed you but now feel empty. You sat in services, surrounded by people, yet felt completely alone. You heard the sermons, yet they no longer spoke to your soul. You raised your hands in worship, yet something inside you longed for more. That longing was not doubt. It was not rebellion. It was God Himself calling you into something greater. The church has served its purpose for many, but for you, the time has come to step beyond it. This is not an attack on the church. It is an awakening. Look at the life of Jesus. He did not spend His days confined to the temple. He walked among the people. He preached on mountainsides, on dusty roads, by the sea. He spoke directly to those who were ready to hear Him, not through rituals, not through institutions, but through a living relationship with the Father. And that is what God is calling you into now. You are not rejecting faith. You are stepping into true faith. A faith that does not rely on routine, on attendance, on the approval of others. This is a faith that is personal, powerful, and completely unshackled. You no longer need to sit inside a church to encounter God, because His Spirit is already within you. Do you feel it? The shift, the undeniable truth that the path you are on is changing? This is not something you chose. This is something God decided for you. He has been pulling you away from the old, preparing you for the new. And now, the moment of decision is here. Will you cling to what is familiar, or will you step into the spiritual freedom that God is offering you? The truth is, most people will never understand this calling. They will tell you that you are lost, that you are walking away from God, that you need the church to guide you, but they are not chosen in the way that you are. Many are called, but few are chosen, and the chosen ones always walk a different path. There is a reason why this moment feels so heavy, why the thought of leaving the old ways behind stirs something deep within you, because this is not just a small decision. This is a calling. God does not call everyone to walk this path. He chooses a select few, those whose spirits are ready to receive something greater. You have likely felt misunderstood. You have tried to explain this feeling to others, but they do not understand. They still find comfort in the traditions, in the familiar, in the structure of the church. But for you, something has changed, and that change is not a mistake. It is divine alignment. Think about the prophets, the ones God set apart. They were never meant to fit in with the crowd. They were never meant to follow the same path as everyone else. Elijah was called into the wilderness, away from the people, where God fed him by the ravens. Moses had to leave the palace before he could become a deliverer. John the Baptist lived outside the religious order, preaching in the wilderness, preparing the way for the Messiah. And now, it is your time. The church has been a place of learning, but God is calling you beyond it. He is breaking the mold, tearing down the limitations, and leading you into a deeper, unfiltered connection with Him. And here is what most will never tell you. Many churches are not equipped for those who are truly chosen. They are built for the multitudes, for those who still need guidance, structure, a place to belong. But you no longer belong in a place made by human hands. You belong in the presence of God Himself. This is why you have felt disconnected. This is why no sermon can quench the thirst in your soul. Because you are no longer being fed milk. You are being called to eat the solid food of direct revelation. Most people will never understand this because most people are not meant to walk this path. They need the safety of routine, the comfort of being told what to believe, the assurance that if they follow the rules, they are on the right track. But you are different. God is not calling you to simply follow. He is calling you to lead. And that means stepping into the unknown. That means trusting Him in ways you never have before. That means letting go of the need for human approval and fully embracing the guidance of the Holy Spirit. This is the moment where faith is no longer just a word. It is an action. The question is, are you willing to walk the path that has been set before you? This journey is not for everyone. But you already know that, don't you? You have felt it in your spirit. That growing sense of separation. The more you have sought truth, the more distant you have felt from the familiar, from the people around you, from the places you once found comfort. At first, you tried to fight it. You told yourself it was just a phase, just a moment of doubt. You tried to force yourself to fit back into the mold, to find meaning in the sermons, to feel at home in the church. But no matter how hard you tried, something inside you had already changed. And now you understand why. God has decided it is time. The time for waiting is over. The time for questioning is done. You have been marked for something greater, and nothing will ever feel the same because you are no longer meant to stay where you were. You may wonder, what happens now? What happens when you step away from the routine, when you walk outside the walls of the church, when you let go of the things that once defined your spiritual life? The answer is simple. You step into something greater. Look at Jesus. His greatest moments were not inside a synagogue. He met people where they were, on the streets, in their homes, in the wilderness, by the sea. He was not confined by tradition, and neither are you. And that is why the church can no longer contain you, because your relationship with God is bigger than a building. Most people will never understand this. They will say, "You are backsliding." They will say, "You are lost." But those words are spoken by people who do not yet see what you see. You are not lost. You are being led. Led by the same Spirit that called Abraham to leave his home. Led by the same Spirit that led Moses into the desert. Led by the same Spirit that drove Jesus into the wilderness before he began his ministry. This path is unfamiliar, but it is sacred. You are stepping into a faith that is not dictated by religious rules, but by divine relationship. A faith that is not bound by human-made traditions, but by the direct guidance of the Holy Spirit. And this is where the separation happens. Because not everyone is ready for this level of faith. Most people still need the structure, the rituals, the safety of the crowd. But you have been called out of the ordinary, out of routine, out of the man-made and into the divine. This is the moment that separates the chosen from the called, and you must decide which you are. Are you ready to embrace what God is revealing to you? Are you ready to stop questioning why you no longer fit in, and instead recognize that God is the one who set you apart? Because once you fully accept this truth, your entire life will change. The moment you embrace this truth, everything shifts. You are no longer bound by the expectations of others, no longer seeking validation from a system that was never meant to contain you, no longer waiting for permission to step into what God has already prepared for you. And when this shift happens, the world will notice. Some will try to pull you back. They will remind you of the traditions, the structure, the way things have always been done. They will tell you that you are making a mistake, that you are walking away from the faith. But they do not understand. They are still drinking milk, while you have been called to eat the solid food of spiritual truth. They still need the comfort of routine, while you have been called to walk in divine freedom. You are not walking away from God. You are walking directly into Him. For too long, people have been taught that God can only be found in a building, within the walls of an institution. But the Spirit of God is not confined. He does not live in man-made temples. He lives in you. And now, God is telling you, go where I lead you. Seek me, and you will find me. Do not rely on traditions. Rely on my voice. This is the moment where you must decide. Will you listen? Will you walk in the path God is laying before you, even when others don't understand? Will you embrace the calling, even when it sets you apart? Will you trust the voice of God more than the voices of men? This journey is not meant to be easy, but it is meant to be yours. The prophets walked alone. The chosen ones were always misunderstood. Those who carried the greatest revelations were often rejected by the very people they tried to help. But they did not stop. And neither will you. You are stepping into a life where every moment is guided by the Holy Spirit, where every decision is made in alignment with divine purpose, where every step you take is ordered by God Himself. This is what it means to be chosen. And now, the choice is yours. Will you step forward into the life God is calling you to? Because once you say yes, there is no turning back. There is no more time to wait. No more time to question. No more time to wonder if this message is truly for you. Because God has already decided. The path before you has been made clear. The doors behind you have closed. The season of hesitation is over. This is the moment where faith must become action. Heaven is watching. The angels are leaning in. God has spoken. Will you listen? For too long, you have let doubt hold you back. You have waited for another sign, another confirmation, another moment when everything feels safe. But faith does not wait for safety. Faith moves. The chosen ones are never called to comfort. They are called to courage. And now, God is calling you to take this final step. He is saying, forget the churches. Forget the old ways. I am doing something new in you. Follow my voice. Trust in me. Walk the path I have prepared for you. This is your confirmation. This is your moment of decision. If your spirit knows this is true, if you feel the power of this message in your soul, then say it out loud. I choose obedience. Declare it in the comments. Write, God, I trust you. I step into my calling. Let heaven and earth see your faith. And then, act on it. Because the moment you do, everything will change. This is your final step. Take it. Something is shifting. Even now, as you listen, the atmosphere around you is changing. The moment you decided to step forward, to embrace this calling, the weight of hesitation began to lift. Because this is how faith works. God moves when you move. You are no longer bound by the limitations of tradition. No longer searching for answers in places that no longer serve you. You are walking in divine alignment now. Every step you take from this moment forward is leading you deeper into the purpose God has prepared for you. And God will honor it. The same God who called Abraham into the unknown. The same God who led Moses through the wilderness. The same God who set Jesus apart from the religious order of his day. That same God is leading you now. Do not look back. Do not question your decision. The world may not understand, but heaven has already confirmed it. The enemy will try to whisper lies, to make you doubt what you already know is true. But your faith is stronger than his lies. You have already won this battle in the Spirit, and now you will see the victory in the natural. Remember, God is not just calling you. He is walking with you. You are not alone. And this is just the beginning. Because once you step into obedience, the journey does not stop. It accelerates. You will look back at this moment and realize it was the turning point. The day you stopped waiting. The day you stopped hesitating. The day you truly said, "Yes, Lord." So move forward. Walk boldly. Walk in faith. Heaven is celebrating, because today you chose obedience over fear. And now, the blessings will follow.